Hey, hi everyone. Welcome back to the seventh episode of RS Podcharts. And today we are going to simplify the finance budget, Union Budget 2025 for you. So it has the major announcements from tax reform to AI, from healthcare to infrastructure, that everything we are going to decode for you. We have the two expertise with us today who is going to help us to decode the Union Budget 2025. Welcome to the show, Jaya and Shri. So I'll request you to introduce yourself to the audience and then we can jump into the budget.
Hello everyone. My name is Sri Lakshmi Kundapur and this is Jayalakshmi Rao. We both partners at Kundapur and Co LLP, a chartered accountant firm. We have started this firm in 2021 and it's going to be 4 years in March for us. We are here to help you understand the union budget, which our finance minister Nirmala Sitharaman has just delivered this morning.
I am Jayalakshmi Rao, partner in Kundapur and Co LLP, and I have experience of 25 years. So here we are to decode the budget in simple terms to make the people understand the effects of the budget on the income.
I think in the budget, everyone was waiting for one announcement, which was the tax relief for the salaried employees, right? And so she kept the best part as a last announcement. It came very well. I think 12 lakh. I think many of us maybe expected, but I did not expect that. And I don't know about you. Maybe you can tell more about that. So, and what are the other exemptions that are included in the direct taxes?
This budget has been a bonanza for the middle class people because they're expecting this relief for quite a long time. Maybe from 7-8 years, they're expecting after Sitaraman has become a finance minister. But from last year, because of the change in the regime, there were lot of difference has come in the tax. Compared to the old regime and in the last year's new regime, there was reduction in the tax payment of the people. And this year, she has increased that 7 lakh rupees of the exemption given last year to 12 lakh rupees. So, up to 12 lakh rupees, there is no tax payment outgo from the hand. But your basic exemption limit under the new regime is 4 lakh. So, up to 4 lakh rupees, you need not file the tax. 4 to 12 lakh rupees, you get rebate of 80,000 rupees. And remember that this 12 lakh rupees is only on incomes not subject to special rates. Means if you have an income from share market, capital gains, short term, long term, these are all subject to tax at special rates. Means 20% or 12.5%. Only on general income like income from salary, income from house property, income from other sources. This 12 lakh limit is applicable. If you have an income of 10 lakh rupees from these sources and you have 2 lakh rupees of income on special rate, that time you have to still pay tax on the special rate because you have special rate of income. So 12 lakh in the sense it is only for general class or who have middle income who are not investing in the share market or who doesn't have the special incomes. For them 12 lakh is a big thing. So comparatively 12 lakh to and she has this time she has generalized or rationalized the tax rates up to 24 lakhs. Last time it was only up to 15 lakhs. So above 15 lakhs the tax rate was 30%. Now above 24 lakh the tax rate is 30%. So there is a gap of 1.10 lakh rupees more money in the hands of the people. So this 10,000 means approximately 10,000 a month. So this they can spend in any of the consumption or they can plan to buy a new vehicle, they can plan to buy a new property or they can invest, nothing is invest in the FDs or something of children's fund or whatever it is. So again it going back to the system, to the channelizing the in the economy and again it is failing the our financial growth or economic growth. So this is what the benefit for the common people. Other than this, she has said about ITRU, means updated return. Till last year, we can file the like for any person has not filed the ITR for any of the previous years, And nowadays ITR is required everywhere. Even if you go for any share, any buying of any asset or vehicle or anything, ITR is required. So he wants to file the ITR. So, and if they require 3 years. And earlier there was no provision to file the ITR for more than 2 years. Now she has increased that limit to 4 years, means 4 years back. This is 23-24 last year, and the time is over by December. So she can, they have extended to Jan 15. So she can file, we can file for this year plus 3-4 years back. Till 21-22 you can start filing the ITRU. Then next is for TDS rationalization has been done. There was no TDS on income from deposits for senior citizens. The up to 1 lakh rupees. It was 50,000 earlier. Now they've increased the TDS exemption. No, they've increased the TDS threshold limit to 1 lakh rupees for 50,000. So again, there's more money in the hands of the senior citizens. Like if somebody has only bank interest, and from that's also from one bank. If he's having, for example, that person has having 60,000 interest in one bank and 60,000 interest in another bank, so total 1.2 lakhs. But both places TDS was deducted earlier. Now in both places TDS will not be deducted. So that is more again that reduces his hardship to file the ITR. Again, from last 2000, I think 2 years back, above 75 years, they need not file the ITR. Again, that was also announced. So for senior citizens, a good thing. Then TDS rate has been, the threshold limit on rent of the property is also increased from 2.4 lakhs to 6 lakh rupees. So if a person earns a rent of 50,000 a month, no TDS need to be deducted by the tenant on the landlord's rent. So again, that's also one good thing. So so then for the charitable institutions, earlier every 5 years they have to renew the registration. Now they made it as 10 years. The registration of the charitable institutions. For house property also, government has reduced the compliance in the sense like till now, if a person owns 2 house properties and both are self-occupied, by chance he is not able to stay in one property and one property is left vacant and he stays in one property, that time he cannot claim 2 property as self-occupied. He has to show one property as deemed let out and he has to pay tax on a deemed rent. Now government in this budget what she has introduced is, without any conditions attached, you can claim 2 house property as self-occupied property and you can show nil income. So this is also a big boost for the people like who stay outside the state or outside the place of their house, or their house is one place because of the profession or business they stay other places. So it is a big boost for them also. Otherwise, they simply have to add that income in their tax, in their income tax computations. So there's also one good thing. Then regarding NSC withdrawal, that old 2000 before 2014, whoever has deposited, they have channelized or some new scheme. She's going how to make withdrawal easier because a lot of money is stuck in the NSS scheme also.
I just want to ask example about this 2 properties. So earlier how it was?
So if I own 2 houses in Bangalore, one house I'm staying, so I can claim as a nil. The value of the property will be nil. The income from the property will be nil. Other property which I'm not using and it's left vacant, though it is left vacant, as per the law, you cannot show it as a self-occupied property. You should, even though you have not given it on rent, there's a deemed rent concept. So you have to show the circle rate in that area as a rent, and that much income is added to your income. So now, because that, in this budget, you can claim 2 properties as vacant. So as a nil. So this property which I'm staying also I'm taking as a nil. Other property also I'm taking as a nil income. So 2 property I can show as a nil income.
Okay. So if I'm getting the rent from that, then
If you're getting rent properly, then you should show it as a rental income.
do you think people will find a loophole in that and they won't claim.
There is no loophole because they have to now the government has earlier people are claiming that that way. Like earlier they are showing that house. Though it is not, maybe they're not at all disclosing that income in the property, or that income that property itself is not shown in the income tax returns. Okay. Now you can show that property in income tax return and you can claim that property as a zero. Because last time, no, when a person, if I own a property, I should show it as I've owned a property, I show as a self-occupied and I should make the income as zero. If I have two properties, income tax in the return, it will not allow other property to claim as a self-occupied. If you are disclosing, genuinely you want to disclose that property, but it is left vacant. That time, in the income tax return, there is no option to put a zero value for that. Though you are not, that time you have to show, that time what happens, you will be hiding that property, the disclosure of the property from the government. And this will have a problem when you sell the property later.
Okay.
It will be again linked to your capital gains. That time department may come and say, you didn't have the property till now, you are not sure that is a self-occupied, how we are selling it. So maybe to streamline these things, the government has said, okay, you have two property and you are not given a debt. Okay, show both the properties, claim zero value for both. So it's a good thing in in a way, because more disclosure is always better in the income tax. Proper disclosures. So when sometimes the proper disclosure leads to something like you have to pay tax on that, the people will not disclose.
In the direct taxes, they have given methodologies for determining arm's length. So arm's length pricing usually comes in transfer pricing section of the Income Tax Act, where you have an international transaction that you would do with your related party, right? So you have directors in common in the customer or in the company to which you're transacting outside the country or even within the country actually. So both international transfer pricing and domestic transfer pricing. So they have mentioned that they're going to issue a different methodology which will have a 3-year block period. So you don't have, your arm's length will not change year on year. Your arm's length will be determined based on the trend of the last 3 years. So we are yet to know what is the methodology that they come up with, but it will be a new way to determine the arm's length pricing for the companies who are dealing with related party transactions. Next, we've had presumptive taxations for professionals and businesses. Now we have a presumptive taxation for non-resident individuals who render services to a resident company. Right? So for those individuals as well, because income is accrued and arised in India, is taxable in India because though they are a non-resident. So for that portion as well, because they were non-resident, they had higher rates of taxes. So determining their income will be easier by giving them a presumptive taxation scheme. Then next, they've also increased the scope of tonnage taxation for ships. Earlier, it was only sea-going ships which had the tonnage taxation regime. Now, even the inland movement of ships will also come under tonnage taxation. So, their income can be calculated based on their tonnage. Startups, she has already mentioned while we were doing the Startup India registration. So, the scheme was available until March 2024. So now they've increased it for 5 more years. So under the Startup India scheme, when they were promoting startups to establish in India, they were provided tax exemptions, they were provided loans, and they were also provided with, it is a 3-year period. So zero tax. So whatever income you earn will be exempted. Anything. So you can test. So not first 3 years. In the period of 10 years, you can decide which 3 years.
Okay.
So first starting mein anyway loss mein rahega because you're just starting off. Then you start making profits and you can use that exemption, and continuous 3 years you can claim exemption and pay no tax. We had a startup scheme which was available to the budding startup, which ended on 31st March 2024. This has been extended for 5 more years, up till 31st March 2030. In this, what benefit the startups have is they will be getting a 3 years tax exemption in a block period of 10 years for them to claim the tax holiday, and they have exemption in capital gains as well. So this has been extended for 5 years. So the startups, I think, have a better opportunity. They don't have to worry that the period is over and they will not be any more eligible for the program. But they will be getting the exemption until 2030.
The budget has also focused on the agriculture, small farmers, and the credit card limit of Kisan credit card is increased from 3 to 5. So, what are the key steps that you think that to promote the or to support the small farmers that has been taken in this budget?
So, in this budget, like Vimala Sitharaman rightly said, they were going into Nyay than, trying to give dand. So, that is what she started off her conversation with, where from the last budget onward, they have been focusing on giving justice, right? So, what has happened is due to privatization, people have moved from rural areas to urban areas, and rural India being our strength is actually getting diluted because of privatization. On the other hand, corporate employees are leaving their jobs and going back into agriculture because they now know and realize that everything lies in agriculture, and it is not just the number crunching that they do in sitting at their desk, right? So with this move, there is a lot of traction that needs to be created amongst youngsters to get back into agriculture, and also people leaving the rural areas or the agriculturally dominant areas of India to the urban areas for jobs. To hold them back, I think this is a very good reform, because the farmers are getting more loans. They're getting credit cards, Kisan credit cards. They've increased the limit from 3 lakh to 5 lakh. They are focusing on pulses, Urad, Masoor, and Tur. So the three most commonly used pulses at home. So they are focusing on those things which are grown in India, and it can be, the production can be done better, and to source it within India and also increase exports. So for that, I think the government has taken a very nice step here to get the focus on agriculture. So you have pulses, you have fisheries, you have Makana when they're focusing on Bihar, because Makana has got a lot of traction lately, making it a very superfood for the consumers and people who are into a lot of dietary restrictions and healthy foods are focusing on Makana. And fisheries. So we have a very huge coastline, and with Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep Islands surrounded with the coastline and the high sea, they want to enhance fisheries, because fisheries, I don't think in the previous budgets they had a lot of benefits that they received. Okay, when we talk about agriculture, it's only paddy, wheat, and the staple foods that we consume, but it never went into fisheries or pisciculture. So to enhance that, I think it's a very good step. So even the fishermen of the coastlines that we have, and we being from the coastline, I think very happy that fishing is taking, also getting the benefits of it. So with that, then comes next, I will detour to the topic of indirect taxes, because in customs they have reduced the customs duty for feeds of your shrimps. So that again is coming to drilling down to agriculture itself, right?
Correct.
So the backbone of Indian economy, who were earlier the farmers are now again coming back to strength, right? When we make our backbone strong, I think we will surely be a global superpower soon, I'm very sure of.
Correct, correct. So earlier, what was the scene with the export, and now how they are promoting the export thing? That I want to know very clearly. What is exactly changed from previous in the export situation here?
So, with exports, the government has started export promotion missions. So, earlier also we had export promotion programs which the exporters used to take benefit of. Now they have increased the export credit for the exporters. So, that will help them gain more, export sales. And next is cross-border factoring. So what happens is usually when in layman terms, most people know it as bill discounting, right? So I send goods to you cross-border, but that invoice I cannot. None of your Indian banks will usually give you financing against those bills, right? So now with cross-border factoring, you can factor these invoices immediately. So you can recover the payments. The exporter gets the benefit where he can get the finance for the goods already exported. And the factoring services will collect the sales proceeds from the exports later on, once the credit term is the credit period is expired. So that way what will happen is your financing needs for the exporters is sorted. Because when you always have an export, it's usually a huge bill which a company will actually take up, right? We don't do exports for 10,000 rupees. All your export bills are usually in lakhs or crores. So if lakhs and crores are the amount that we're talking about, the cost for it, which a exporter has to bear, also will come to the same amount. And if our credit limit or the credit terms with our customers are higher, say for 30 or 60 days, here an exporter would suffer because he's going to realize the money only after 60 days. So with this factoring, he will be able to reduce that term. And if he feels that, he is going into that cash crunch phase, then he is able to get that money faster. So with that money, he will be able to increase the exports. So it's a cycle.
So for example, if I want to export for 1 CR, so मतलब इसको हिंदी में भी करते हैं, हाँ 1 करोड़ का अगर मुझे एक्सपोर्ट करना है तो कैसे रहेगा मतलब?
सी अभी मेरे को आपको 1 करोड़ का एक्सपोर्ट करना है, ठीक है? तो मेरा कॉस्ट समझो, बिकॉज एक्सपोर्ट है तो 40% का मार्जिन लेके चलते हैं, तो उसमें मेरा कॉस्ट समझो 60 लाख का हो गया, 40 लाख का मेरा मार्जिन है उसमें। तो अभी 1 करोड़ मुझे मिलेगा 60 दिन के बाद, करेक्ट? बट मेरे को लेबर का पेमेंट करना है अगले महीने, मेरे को अपने वेंडर का पेमेंट करना है से 30 दिन बाद, राइट? बट मेरे को मिलेगा पैसा कब? 60 दिन के बाद में। सो वो 30 डेज का गैप जो है वो हम लोग इस फैक्टरी में ब्रिज कर सकते हैं।
ओके।
सो उसमें क्या आएगा, कंपनी के अकाउंट्स में लिक्विड कैश पड़ेगा, एंड जो कलेक्शन करना है वो फैक्टरिंग वाला कर लेगा। हमारा वी डोंट हैव टू लुक इनटू द कलेक्शन पार्ट ऑफ इट, बट हमको अपना पैसा मिल जाएगा, हमारा वेंडर खुश, ही विल सप्लाई द मटेरियल्स टू अस ऑन टाइम। तो इस वजह से प्रोडक्शन कैपेसिटी बढ़ेगी। अगर आपको और मुझे अगर सैलरी टाइम पे नहीं मिलेगा तो ऑफिस में काम कौन करेगा?
करेक्ट।
वी विल डिले, वी विल दैट वो एंथुसियाज्म नहीं रहेगा। सो लोग खुश, कंपनी खुश, कंपनी का सेल्स बढ़ेगा। So in the whole of the budget, if you see, it is more like they have tried to touch that sentiments of people. They have tried to touch कि आपको थोड़ा एक्स्ट्रा पैसा दोगे तो you will spend something a little extra, and at the end the economy will boost.
Correct.
So I think that is how the baseline what I've understood is You give more, you will spend more. So you spend more, the money rotates.
Economy will.
Yeah, and the economy will grow.
GDP will grow.
Yeah.
What are the key announcements for MSMEs and other industries like footwear, leather in this budget?
So, so in the export promotion schemes, so what the government has done this time is they have got export promotion mission. Okay, so over there you have a fund of 2,250 crores, and they've also had a fund set up for 5,000 crores for promoting these exporters. Plus, in addition to that, we have cross-border factoring, which will help the exporters to liquefy their sales and turnover to get the money rotating in their business. Next, they also have got Bharat Trade Net, BTN as they call, for all the documentations and for logistics purposes. So it will be a one step portal where everything regarding the exports will be covered.
Okay, got it.
So then also the exports have been, the exporters in MSME have got a term loan limit of 20 crores. So which is a big boost because which will help these exporters increase their manufacturing capacity and you invest in the capital goods that are required for promoting their exports. That way our exports will increase.
Got it. And for other industries, is it the same?
So for other MSMEs, the eligibility of MSMEs have increased. So the investment by 2.5x and the turnover limit by 2x. So that way we have a lot more people coming into the gambit of MSME. And for they have given a credit guarantee cover for the micro enterprises for 10 CR. For startups, they have given a 10 to 20 CR. From 10, they've increased it to a 20 CR credit limit with a 1% fee. I think that is a very big step because I think each of that amount matters to the startups. The micro enterprises have also been given a credit card, which is given by the Udyam portal. So this will help many micro enterprises because 5 lakh is something which they can use it as their working capital. Most of them will get sorted because of this. So yes, this is about MSMEs. MSMEs have been, I think, the prime focus in addition to startups.
Growth in the general one.
Yes.
Yeah, she mentioned. Okay. Okay, so one more question regarding the income tax. I'll just come back to that. Is that how the government is taking loss of 1 trillion around, by aggressively taking this type of this tax reform of exemption of 12 lakh up to 12 lakh limit. So how do you think that they are looking at this?
Not necessary. On the face of it, yes, we are losing a lot of taxes. By we meaning the government is losing a lot of taxes, which is coming directly into their kitty. But by reducing that and by focusing on getting that extra amount into an individual's account, like she said, if a person has 24 lakh per annum package and 1,10,000, which is almost 50% of their monthly salary is saved in a year. So that 1.1 lakh of rupees, either you will invest in something. If not anything, it will still stay in your SB account, which might still earn you 4% of interest, but still it is there somewhere. It is not idle. Or you will invest into a house, you will buy a car, you will, take that extra step of spending it somewhere. So by doing that, someone else's income increased. अभी मेरे पास से 1,10,000 लेके चलेंगे तो इन अ मंथ 10,000 मेरे बैंक अकाउंट में ज्यादा आ गया. Okay, in a year roughly 10,000. So if we make it as a ballpark figure of 1.2 lakh per annum. सो 10,000 मेरे अकाउंट में आ गया, 10,000 बचेगा नहीं, इधर जाएगा शॉपिंग पे या जाएगा खाने पे, ओके, या जाएगा घर के डेवलपमेंट में, या यू विल से ओके 10,000 ज़्यादा मिल गया, सो आई कैन स्टिल अफोर्ड टू पे अ मेड और अ कुक 500 और 1,000 रुपीज़ एक्स्ट्रा.
करेक्ट.
तो उनका इनकम भी बढ़ा. मैं जाके मेघनास में खाई, मेघना wants to open another food chain, or I go into wanting to buy a car. The manufacturing sector developed. If I want to go invest that same amount into construction for buying a house, then real estate boom. So we are seeing the 1.x trillion which is lost in taxes to the government, but in turn that 1 so trillion is actually getting invested in something different, which is revenue generating. तो at the end वापस जाके बैठेगा गवर्नमेंट के पास.
Economy में the story also. Yeah.
So it is like, you give 10 rupees extra to a small kid, they will see what and all they can do with that. So it's just that. At the end, it is going to grow.
So what's there in budget around the nuclear energy that they mentioned for the privatization, then the solar and the EV?
Green energy, so renewable and sustainable way of getting an energy. So earlier, इतना ज़्यादा तो नहीं पता एनर्जी के बारे में, but as much as we know about nuclear and solar energy that they कि अभी इतना सारा धूप पेस्ट हो रहा है, यूज़ कर लो, because you don't have a lot of resources. That's why you got EV powered cars in the market, so that petrol and diesel का यूज़ कम हो जाए, right? So अगर पेट्रोल एंड डीजल का यूज़ कम होता है, then our electrical grids were only hydro backed up. So if you want to generate more electricity, then you need other sources. If you're expecting that the total population of India is going to change from a diesel and petrol run cars and two-wheelers to an EV, then we need to ensure we have the infrastructure to hold it. कि अभी पता चला सब लोगों ने EV ले लिया, but there is no power. There is no source of energy to charge your cars. Then everyone is going to regret the choice that they made for moving from a fuel-driven car to an EV. So this is a good thing that they have bought this as priority now. So before everyone moves into an electrical mode, it is better we make the infrastructure right for it. So it is more, I feel, on the forward planning that they ensure that these clean energy manufacturing sectors have been given the funds that they need. So solar has got 1,500 crores sanctioned. Then you have 20,000 crores which has got for R&D. Right? So that will actually benefit. So all they have focused on is solar, EV, motors, controllers, and wind turbine. So even your windmills which are going to be manufactured and installed, so that we can get even wind energy. Utilize the natural resources which we have at hand, so that we will be able to cater to the need that will be arising soon. So it is not a short-term thing. So we cannot expect that a windmill today will, manufacture it, install it, and immediately next day say you will have the energy ready. So it is a process. It's going to take time for installation, it's manufacturing and installation. So that way, doing it now with a 5-year plan in mind, I think we know in 5 years, even if we scrap the vehicles that we are traveling in right now, we will be sure to have the energy that we need. Otherwise, I'm still going to stick to my diesel-driven car or a petrol-driven car. Because I don't know, tomorrow, power shortage ho gaya, so I will be stranded on the road.
Correct.
Right? So it is better. So EV driven cars are just an example, but there will be many things in the pipeline which would be electrically driven.
But do you think this is a new concept like nuclear energy privatization? So, is there anyone right now doing this?
Privatization, although the public private partnership along with the state and everything, it is not earlier because nobody in the government only was doing the nuclear scale. So once it is open to private or it is with the private public partnership, if they do the PP model, so it will be benefiting even the private companies also. And how to, because it is all very capital intensive sector, lot of investment. So government, the private sector and their cost of capital will be very high. So government has set up a separate fund where they can allocate the fund to these private individuals, and they can, with their partnership, and they can also promote the employment and a bit in that way. So
The big opportunities coming on the way.
with opportunities for the manufacturing. In 2033, by within 8 years, they're planning to operate at least 5. It means it's a very long process to start a nuclear project or something. So it's very long process. So in 8 years, they're just planning to start 5 small modular reactor units in India. So that's going to change the face maybe in coming for time.
Yeah, they would be aggressive on this. Yeah.
And they have reduced even the custom duties also on the import of these EV products or what I can say, the reactors and everything. So it is like either by importing also they can there is a benefit. They can import directly, and they can produce also in India those products. So there is a lot of rationalization in the customs duty rates for these type of products.
Got it.
So nuclear power is the seventh largest source of electricity, along with the after coal, solar, wind. It comes. So hydro and biomass is also there. So after in 2024, if I'll take the data, November 24, India has 24 nuclear reactors in operation in 8 nuclear power plants with total installed capacity of 8,180 megawatts. So this is what the data says. So this government wants to improve this by adding 5 more in next 3 years for the nuclear power. So with that we can have more energy, what like green energy we can use, and we can use the green energy to reduce the pollution, reduce our for all the consumption, because fuel, again, petrol is a natural resource, and it is, again, if you go somewhere, so after some time if you are there, so this is a source of energy which is green energy and nuclear energy, which will be continuing.
This we did not expect it. Like, this is a very interesting move, I think, that government has made.
Yes.
Yeah. Solar and EV was there, but nuclear was under the government only. Yeah.
So I think with all government organizations getting privatized, it is better to start off as a public-private partnership. That way, you are already there in the same, environment. So it's like getting flavor of corporate culture and privatization into how the government sectors or the public sector work. I think give that push, because we've always seen people complaining that the public sectors or the government sectors are slow,
Yes.
right? So it is good thing that than giving the 100% into the government sector, they have also accepted, or they have also understood the challenge of giving it to 100% government sector and given it to a public-private partnership. That way, it will get done faster.
Correct.
Privatization, 100% private, you will lose the reins from the project. But by doing this, I think you will have the control over it, and still you will be able to get the work done in a better speed.
Agree. So let's talk about the technology. So there's a budget of 500 crore is allocated for the Center of Excellence in AI, and then the 20,000 crore budget is allocated for R&D. So how do you see this? What kind of what's your perspective on this? how it is going to help us in generating the employment, doing the R&D, and how it is different from before.
See, the trend now is with startups, right? So a lot of people with a lot of need-based innovations, I would say. You want something delivered home. That's why Swiggy, Zomato, and Zepto came into the picture. Otherwise, no one really understood, wanted to tackle that need. So, in the young generations now, there's a lot of scope for such innovations. And with AI coming into the picture, there's a lot of things that can be done, which earlier we thought only humans could do, now can be done by machines. So, and it also pushes an individual to to know something or to be better than a machine so that he can understand that machine. So recently I met a person who was into AI for biology, and I was very curious, like, how are you going to do AI in biology? Because I always thought doctors were supposed to do it and no machine is going to do it. Yes, you have few machines in the medicine industry where few operations are performed, but again, there are people doing it. So he said there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of potential in that industry because it's an untapped market and it can be done. So that will actually help you boost your knowledge. So when I was having that discussion with that gentleman, he mentioned, I don't know, we were like, for me, it was like, if AI comes, humans are going to become dummies. And they're not going to think outside the box because they know some tech, some machine is going to do their job and they just have to sit and click on and off or, run the macro or all of those things. So that is when he said, no, you will have to know what is running in the system so that you will be better off. You will be able to understand the outcome. So this will actually push an individual's enthusiasm to get better and think what our previous generation didn't think. So I think we're seeing that with the current generation also. So where we would have stopped thinking, they're thinking after that. So the AI will actually help in getting the thoughts better, or hope that they don't just take over the universe like how in any of those sci-fi movies.
So, what do you think? Like, with the 20 crore budget is allocated for the private sector R&D, so which are the most beneficial sectors would be in that case? Like, which sectors will get the most benefited from this? What do you think?
Till now, everything was focusing on the startups. All benefits are given to startups. So what about the existing companies who are not in the startup ambit, but also need to be benefited because they too have ideas. They too want to research. So they've also got the 20,000 crores. So if they have any innovative ideas, they have something which can be developed, can also utilize these funds and grow and bring something new into the market. So I feel the IT might take a very good benefit from this fund, because that is something, though has been booming, has still more options to boom with the different enhancements in its available, the resources available to it in hand. So I think that will be the first sector which will benefit surely out of this.
Correct. And along with that, the 500 crore budget is allocated only for the AI. So I think
Correct. Yes.
yeah, I think the Ashwin Vaishnav, the Indian IT minister, mentioned that within the 8 months, coming 8 months, they are going to build the same, like they have done the privatization, and they are giving the opportunity for the different private sectors where they have the infrastructure already established. So this budget may be very helpful for them.
Correct.
Yeah. We saw that 1 lakh crore Urban Challenge Fund is announced. So what are the main objectives, do you think, for it?
So we have been speaking about villages, rural areas being benefited by the budget till now. So the people from the rural areas who have come to urban areas for their earning their living, also need some benefit. It cannot happen that there is something good happening in the rural areas and everyone who has come into urban areas for work would rush back to their villages because they're getting a better benefit there. Then the whole industrial setup, the whole factories that have been set up in the whole in India would come to a standstill because these are the same employees, the same laborers whom the factories are depending upon. So this fund, I'm guessing, will be of help to those people. I'm using the term guessing because we need to know what and all is going to be the terms and conditions that the fund is going to come up with and who their target audience are. But by understanding how our finance minister has gone through the whole budget, I'm guessing this is also for those who have come from rural areas into urban areas for work.
Got it. So in the budget, she mentioned about the 50 tourist spots in India has to be developed along with the help of a partnership with the state. So, and special focus will be on the Buddha sites. So can you explain more about that?
She is promoting India as a big tourist spot. So for that purpose, whoever comes to India from outside, so the visas are important. So she has what she said is e-visa process is more simpler process will be followed, and to some tourist groups, she will be waiving the visa fees. So this is one point. This is for the tourists who come. But in India, for the development of the tourist space, for the development of hotel logistics. So it is a state subject also, the land and logistics or the infrastructure. So this the development of tourism is with the state, allows with the state participation. She is planning to develop the as a industry. And there is a now she has mentioned about Heal in India initiative, where the people come from outside India for the medical treatment, and with that she can what she says, she can promote as a medical tourist spot as the in also, and for that purpose, that is for the medical, and for the whenever the leisure is there or for homestays, like no, where everywhere the hotel cannot come up. So we can go for like Airbnb. I can put my house as a hotel. So then the homestays are developed. In that case, the homestays for the maintenance of the home, mudra loans are also announced. Up to 20 lakh rupees mudra loans we can get. So any person who has a home and he's not staying, and if he wants to give his house as a homestay, then for that whatever daily खर्चा है जो भी आता है इसका मेंटेनेंस वगैरह, उसके लिए he can go for a loan on that. Then and for the youth, like it is like when you put a thing like as a tourism as a industry or as just then participation of the youth is also very important, and they should be very skilled cleaning और सब जगह इसमें तो अच्छे से, and how to explain about the place. अभी जो आके देखते तो there will not be issues. If I have to know the culture, and if I have to know about the place properly, there should be proper skill. So development of skills. So for the youth also, she has included they have given a special training. They want to give a skill development for the youth. Whoever wants to come to the hospitality and tourism industries. And then local travel, local connectivity, again, that's also comes in logistics. Again, infra will improve. As per the infra, again, improves, again, place will improve, develop. Then there is a performance linked incentive that we have to see what is how it comes. So that's also she has announced BLIs for the tourism industries.
When you mentioned the Heal in India, so she has given some benefits to the medical industry also. Can you also explain that?
In the medical sector, what they've done is for cancer and rare diseases, 36 life-saving drugs, they have removed the customs duty on it. And up for, I think, around 6 drugs, they have told that it will be concessional duty. So how much is the concession that the product is getting? We're yet to know. And what are these drugs? The list is, I think, the annexures are still yet to come out. So by that, I think they're helping the Heal in India project of the government to take a very good shape.
Hmm.
So yeah, they've also mentioned that within 3 years, I think cancer centers will be situated in most of the district hospitals across India. So which way I think fighting cancer will be it will be at ease and it will be within everyone's reach.
And when we are talking about the medical, so they have also expanded the number of seats for the medical students.
So by giving funds into infrastructure development for all of the medical institutes, so they're planning for us in their 5-year plan, they have a 75,000 seat increase for all the medical students. In the next 1 year, they are targeting 10,000 seats, which they will be giving to the medical students.
So we have talked about the salaried people, then agriculture, startups, businesses, MSMEs, and now the medical also. So what is there for the youth? What do you think? What is there for the youth?
When it came into investment, Nirmala Sitharaman Madam has focused on three things, that is people, economy and innovation. So when it came to people, she was more into nutritional support for the people so that there is no child in this country who is malnourished, right? And next came into having utter tinkering labs in many more schools. So she mentioned that it is to gain curiosity from the students so that they have that inquisitiveness to learn and explore options better at a younger age. Right, and then it comes also next is giving broadband connects to government schools in rural areas, then digitizing Indian languages of getting all the manuscripts of historical importance digitized and get it accessible to the general public. And next is they're also having 5 National Center of Excellence, which will be coming up in India to enhance skills of the youth at large and making them ready for the future. Next is infrastructure in IITs. So they are giving them funds to increase their infrastructural capacity. By increasing the infrastructural funds, it will also exceed the number, help. Sorry. So giving infrastructure funds to the IITs for development will help them increase the seating capacity of students and increase the IITians who are coming out of those institutes. So they're targeting for 6,500 more students every year who will be churning out of these IIT institutes from India. The IIT in Patna is also getting a specific fund release so that they can have many more students in the premises and increase the operations of IIT.
So in the budget, Nirmala Sitharaman also mentioned about making the India as a big hub for the toy manufacturing. So how do you see that? Where it is coming from, and what is the vision? What do you think?
So yes, Nirmala Sitharaman mentioned she wants to make India the global hub for toys. So I think this would have come from the toy fair which was named Kilona. I think we had it 3 years in a row now, and many artisans from across India have participated in it. It was inaugurated by our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. And it has seen a lot of traction. All of those, skills which were lost and forgotten in India, all were in those toy fairs. We've seen Narendra Modi play with the toys in those fairs as well. So I'm guessing the whole idea for making India a hub for toys is from this toy fair itself. And with the ban in Chinese goods that we've seen in the previous years, I think we need innovative toys that have to come up from our own Indian market if we want Make in India to be a successful one. So yeah, so that is, I think, the way ahead for India to grow in the field of art and craft. With toys, I think our handicrafts industries also will, grow, because it comes hand in hand. Each of our toys, if we go back into our childhood, we will see which are geologically, collected. You come to different states and you collect different variety of toys which is specific to those states, right? So it will increase the handicraft industry and uplift the rural India again.
I think that's a great initiative.
Yes.
Yeah. So, talking about the textile industry, so what do you think that is there in the budget about the textile?
When Madam Nirmala Sitharaman spoke about agriculture, she also mentions about cotton growing. So they want to invest in different varieties of cotton which are high quality, which in turn will help the textile industry. This reminds me that, Sadhguru is promoting cotton wear, and what is made by the handicrafts from the same charaka which Gandhi used to use, right? So I think it all goes back to our history and making our history stronger. So I think textile industries will give good quality cotton. Also remembering when people used to visit from the US, my dad used to tell me that, the cotton in the US or the textiles that come from the US yarns are very good quality. But again, going back to the supply chain, the cotton came from us.
Exactly.
The cotton produced was ours. They was just manufacturing it. So if I think, and those textile industries have shut down in the US for sure now, but I think now we can again revive it in India. We have the technology, we have the people, we have the skill, and we have the resources.
Correct.
So getting it on board, it will boost the economy.
And if we promote the export of that same, so it is going to be the very big move for the India.
Very big move, because synthetic is not sustainable, and when we are going towards sustainability, we are going towards lesser pollution, then agri-based sustainable model is a better model to run, and cottons is obviously the best first choice.
We have seen that in this budget, limelight was on Bihar. So, what are the enhancements we can see forward in Bihar?
For Bihar, there are plenty of initiatives given for Bihar. One is because Bihar is also very poor. I can't say poor, but it's a labor intensified state, and mostly the labor they migrate from Bihar because there are not much of development in Bihar. Not even industries or even the agriculture is also not in good shape. So now government has they want to set up Makana board. Makana has become superfood nowadays. So they want to set up Makana board in Bihar, one thing. Then even for food processing, the government has taken initiative for establishment institute for food processing. That's also in Bihar. Then for IIT Patna, again, we know about that is for hostel benefits or infrastructure this will implement. And then for canal project for the irrigation purposes, that's also for Bihar. So, and not forgetting the tourism, where the land of Buddha, the special package is also given for the tourism industry. So, Bihar has made the main focus in this budget this time.
Airports also.
Airports, yeah. There's a green corridor airport for the Bihar. It is coming up. There's a total new project. And Udan is a one more initiative because so many airports of last 4-5 years, the air connectivity has been improved a lot. So many small airports are to almost many places in and around India, and even the cost also has come down. So again, that Udan project also she has mentioned about the Udan project and extending the Udan project to some other places.
Hmm.
in this budget.
Got it. I think till now we have talked all good about the initiatives that government has announced in this budget. So, and I think this is the first time that people like this budget in this 8 years of Nirmala Sitharaman, finance minister. So, what do you think that what else we could have included in this? And what point comes to my mind is we could have simplified the GST structure. I think people are not happy with the existing GST. So, what are your thoughts about it? What we could have included more and the GST part?
So, GST is not something which a finance minister alone decides. So, there is a council set up for it, which is made from the chief ministers of all the states. So, as you know, a GST component will have a state component as well as a central component which goes in. So, it is not in madam's hand to be able to reduce a rate, because she'll have to have the consensus of all the chief ministers. And if even one chief minister objects for it, because it, by reducing the rate, meaning the state budget is cut. State budget is cut, the development in the states will also stall. So I don't think that is something which Nirmala Sitharaman alone can take a call on. So I think by getting an economically developed India, we can someday reach a goal wherein GST rates also will be reduced. Where we complain that rates in foreign lands are lesser than the taxes that we pay in India, we might be able to reach there. That the only way there is by economically getting India into a developed country, and I think the taxes will take care.
So, do you think that if we are getting the relief in the tax exemptions for the salaried people and many more initiatives by the government, so do you think the inflation will go high or it will go low?
By having more money in the hand, that means your spending is more. So consumption is more, the demand is more. Again, it's a cycle. So once the GDP increases, GDP and inflation are directly proportionate. So if you want higher GDP, we should be ready for inflation also. And by spending more, it leads to inflation. So inflation, but it in a sense is good, in a sense, because people have more money. They're not paying to the government, but indirectly it goes to the government in a ways. They're by spending, and they're in that cycle it reaches the government only. So people are also happy by reducing the tax. And ठीक है, बाद में पैसा तो देना ही है ज़्यादा, तो that is okay. But we have taxes reduced. That's a major relief for all the people. Inflation तो होता रहेगा, and as the year passes, inflation can't reduce. So that people they're made up their mind. But जब हाथ में भी पैसा नहीं है, and if the taxes also more, inflation is more, that is a point everybody agree. अब ठीक है, now everybody is happy with the thing.
One question comes to my mind is for the developed countries, how it?
Developed countries, the GDP, the actual developed GDP is not very high. Even in America also, it may be 1% or 2% is a GDP. And you remember, like their inflation reaching 4% itself is a big thing for them. Because when GDP is less, and their inflation is also very less. So the last like 2-3 years in America, the inflation was crossing somewhere in between 4 to 5% or 3 to 4%. That is very high for them. And there is no production actually in America. Everything they buy from outside and they sell. So in developed countries, the GDP is also very low, inflation is also low. It is developing countries, so the GDP, if the GDP increases, the inflation also is going to increase.
Got it.
That time the people have less money in the hand. Once they liquidity, they tighten the liquidity so that the inflation comes down. That's why America is increasing the rate on the government rate is there, that be a bank rate. America is not at all reducing; it's been increasing. From last 2.5% is come to nearly 4.25% now.
So when we say rate is increasing, it's on the loans or in the savings?
No, it is bank rate. Like bank has a specific rate. There's base rate for the bank. So that bank rate, that plus 2% is your lending rate, and bank rate is set by RBI. There's the central banks. So that rate itself is the key rate for the lending also, for the investment also, for the savings also. So based on that rate only, if that rate is increasing, so that is less money in the market, that will reduce inflation in the circulation. So once the government feels that the market is we have tightened the money, the bank will increase the rate. So money will be squeezed off from the market. So
Volatile money won't be in the market.
that way it goes.
In the budget, you mentioned the fiscal deficit is 4.8%, and the projection for the 2026 is 4.4%. So, how do you see that?
That's well within the limit because generally the market, everybody reacts based on the fiscal deficit the company had, the government had. So it is 4.4% is a good projection of first, and it is like last year she projected 4.9% and is well within this 4.8% is well within the limit. We are not crossing the fiscal budget, so that is a good thing for India. Otherwise, like after doing so much of spending and anything, so if the fiscal deficit more or borrowing is more, it's not good. So we are very within the limit. Yeah.
Okay. And what are your views on the capex? Because I see that the market reaction today was not that good. Maybe we can expect the reaction of the actual market on Monday. But how do you see the capex?
I think the current budget was more focused on consumption based rather than the capex based. So there have been no budget allocations as such for capital expenditures. They've not enhanced budgets for the defense or any of the other sectors. It is only on the consumption based model that they're running. So I think there's a new different strategic change that the government has tried to adapt here. This strategy change might be some for the betterment. Going by the same old methodology of budgets, they've gone a little different and made it, I think, appealing to most of the crowds. Today, I think, would be the only day when Nirmala Sitharaman was cheered compared to the other days while she was always subject to ridicule for increasing the GST rate on popcorns or being very stringent with the fiscal budget which she announces.
So FDI limit for the insurance sector has been raised to 100%. So what does that mean exactly for the viewers? Can you explain that?
So an insurance company, when earlier we had a limit of 74% of foreign direct investment in any insurance company. So now in this union budget, they have increased that to 100%, provided that the whole premium that company collects will be invested back in India only. Right. So this will not be applicable for the public sector insurance companies which we already have, like SBI Life Insurance or LIC, because they are public sector. They also have a stake from the common man of India, and they have a government board as well. This will mostly be for the insurance company which are in the private sector, wherein there is no dilution to the public, but it has been held by an Indian investor and a foreign investor. So now a foreign company or a foreign investor can have 100% stake in an insurance company which is established in India and provides services in India.
But the catch is they have to...
Yes, the catch is they have to invest the whole proceeds again back in India. So that way we invite more funds into India, and we also use the funds that we are getting from the premiums from the insured into India itself. It is not going anywhere else.
Can we say this budget is for the middle class people?
Yes, it is. So it has targeted. Yes, a few of them still thought, the 12 lakh limit, they would have been expecting a little higher. We were considering the streak of our finance minister. We thought it would be a little more lesser. So for us, it came with, acha ho raha hai. But there were a few more people who were expecting a little more higher rebate on the income taxes side. But all in all, it is a good budget because they have targeted every sector possible. It is very difficult to tell which sector they've left out. So it is a good strategy that they at least the note that they started off this financial year with. I think it is really good. We've covered everything which this wide budget had in store for us. So I think that's all from our side.
Thank you so much, Jaya and Shri, for coming to the podcast on a very short notice. Today only the budget got released and we are doing this podcast here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you. Thank you.